What's up guys, AD back with another Destiny Child video, and in today's video everyone we are going to be overviewing the World Boss Trials Season 32 team guide for the Harmonia boss event. So without any further ado, let's get started here with the boss skills, as we do have the Wood Defender Guardian Harmonia on the left hand side of the graphic here. As for the tap skill, we do have dealing damage 2 times to 4 enemies, priority buffed, grants Thorn Shield, target defense plus 15%, and for 8 seconds bleed 300 damage over time every 2 seconds, not stackable, damage to attackers, and battle cry attack plus 15% stacked up to 3 times, cannot be removed to self for 16 seconds long. As for the slide skill here, we do have dealing damage 2 times to 5 enemies, priority highest HP, 800 bonus damage, grants a battle cry attack plus 20% stacked up to 3 times, cannot be removed to self for 16 seconds long. As for the drive skill here, we do have dealing damage to all enemies in the front row and inflict the rend, 250 damage and bonus damage on targets with DOT debuffs 3 times to 5 enemies, priority bleeding. As for the leader buff here, debuff evasion plus 30%, all skill defense plus 80% except for weak point attributes, and allure immunity for all allies. As for the buff info here, enemy skill gauge plus 20%, weak point defense minus 40% for all enemies, and nullified disabled debuffs, petrify, silence, confuse, stun, sleep, smite, as well as nullify the electrocution debuff. So a pretty decent skill sets here for the boss. Of course, she does have a ton of damage over time here throughout the bleed as well as rend, and of course the Thorn Shield and of course a battle cry can be very annoying to go up against. So let's give you guys some suggestions here, starting with the first row consisting of the new character in Erebus, our fire type supporter, the new offensive stance, as well as frenzy user here for the fire world boss teams. As we do have her here, you should run her on slide skill only, and it's recommended to test out her leader skill if you don't happen to have the units of Ramladal, in which we'll mention later. Moving on here, we do have the debuffer counters, in which it's recommended to run 1 to 2 of these units depending on your team investment. As we do have Babel here as well as Alter Davi, it's recommended to run both of these units on the slide only. Now moving on, we do have the debuff extenders. It's recommended to run both of these characters. As we do have Navi here as well as Lewin, you should run both of these characters on slide skill only. Moving on here everyone, we do have the disable the boss strategy here, in which it does consist of 2 units, in which we do have Bradamante ignited to 3 red stars, as well as Pan here, in which you'll want to run 2 of these characters on slide only, as these 2 units will disable the boss entirely if you do happen to have Bradamante ignited to at least 3 stars, as well as apply these units with accessories with debuff accuracy plus, and of course add on the troubleshooter Mona Solkara to these characters as well. Moving on everyone, we do have the dancing blaze slash defense minus category, in which we do have the recommendation of 1 to 2 of these characters depending on which units you do have. Now if you do happen to have Ramladal, you can run her alongside Zagati, our latest fire type debuffer, to arrive with her Ragna break that just ended fairly recently here, so you should happen to have her. If you do happen to have Ramladal, make sure to run her alongside Zagati. Now if you don't happen to have Ramladal, then you won't be using Zagati at all. Make sure to only use a Lady Bathory for this category here. Now for Ramladal and the Zagati combo, you want to run both of these units on slide only. Now if you aren't running this combination, you will run a Lady Bathory on slide skill only. Of course, Ramladal will need 3-star ignition, so make sure to keep that in mind when using her in this world boss event. Moving on here everyone, we do have the weak point defense minus. It's recommended to run 1 of these characters. First up here, we do have Mercury, which needs to be ignited to 4-star ignition to have use in the world boss trial, so make sure to use her at 4-star ignition. If you don't happen to have her ignited, then use Midas here, and you can run either of these characters on slide only. Now moving on, we do have the double-edged sword category, which does consist of Failnaught as well as Dionyside. Of course, Failnaught is the superior option, so so make sure to run these characters on slide skill only, and of course lean towards using Failnaught over City. As for the skill defense minus category, everyone, we do have Oracle Werewolf, in which you'll run her on slide only. And moving on here, we do have the aid category, in which you'll run one of these characters here, in which we do have Samael being the better option of the two. You should run her on 1 slide and 4 taps, and consider using her leader skill. Next here, we do have Newbie Mona, in which you should run her on 1 slide and 2 taps at the very least. You can consider adding additional taps onto Newbie Mona's skill order if you guys are struggling with survivability. For the next row here, everyone, we do have the crit buffers, in which you should run one of these characters. Of course, we do have Lupin being the better option of the two, in which you should run her on 1 slide and 4 taps here. If you don't happen to have a Lupin, then you'll be running Pantheon here on a slide only. Now, following this category, we do have the offensive stance category, in which we do have Erebus here, the new fire type supporter. You'll be running her on slide skill only, and we'll be using her drive skill as well, in which we'll discuss later. Now, for the offensive supporters, it's recommended to run 2 to 5 of these units depending on your investment. We do have Kresnik here. You should run her on slide only. Followed by Kresnik, we do have Teresa, in which you'll run her on 1 slide and 4 taps. Next here, we do have Jia Changbi, in which you'll need to have her ignited to at least 2 stars, so make sure to do that before running her, and you'll run her on tap only. Next here, we do have Nimhain, in which you'll run her on tap skill only as well, and followed by Nimhain, we do have Anemone here, in which we will be running her on at least 1 slide and 2 taps. Next here, everyone, we do have the speed buffer and cooldown reduction category, in which we will be running 3 to 4 of these characters. First up here, we do have Sweet Citri, in which you'll run her on slide only. Following Sweet Citri, we do have Maid Citri, in which you'll be running her on 1 slide and 2 taps. Next here, we do have Tragedy Rusalka, in which you'll be running this character on 1 slide and 4 tap skills. Followed by Rusalka, we do have Melia, the Guilty Gear collaboration unit. If you do happen to have her, then you can run her on 1 slide and 2 taps at the very least, and also consider running additional tap skills here on your Melia as well, if you do happen to have her invested further into. Next up here, we do have Thisbe, in which you should run her on slide only for this category here. Next up, we do have the healer category. It's recommended to run 0 to 1 of these units depending on your team survivability. Of course, Freya is the best option here for the healer category, as we do have full team heal as well as debuff evasion percentage plus. Now, if you don't happen to have Freya, you can run Alf or Mats here, in which you should run either of these characters on slide only, as they both do happen to have full team heal. Next up here, everyone, we do have the defender category, in which you should run one of these characters if you are struggling. As we do have Nephthys here, you should run her on slide only, and if you don't happen to have Nephthys, you can run Zooming Mars here on slide only as well. Next up here, everyone, we do have the fire type attackers that are recommended. First up here, we do have Courtesan Bathory, in which you should run her on 1 tap and 4 slides. Followed by Courtesan Bathory, we do have Letta here, in which you should run her on 1 tap and 2 slides. You can also consider running her on 1 tap and 4 slides as well. Now, moving on, we do have Metis here, in which you should actually run her on slide only, so make sure to avoid using her tap skill, as Erebus's slide skill does conflict with Metis's tap skill buff, so make sure to keep that in mind. Next here, we do have Tiamat. It's recommended to run her on slide only. And for our tap-based attackers, we do have Reynard, which was recently released, so you can consider running her on tap skill only. And we also do have the recommendation of Love and Hate Davi here, in which you can also run this character on tap skill only. As for the notes here, everyone, we do have 2 to 3 attackers is sufficient. Attacker prioritization would be the 6 hit percentage slide overall. Moving on, we do have Oracle Werewolf should be set to slide and 1 tap if you are using tap-based attackers such as Love and Hate Davi or Reynard. Moving on here, we do have the second tip. If your Maid Citri is ignited to 3 stars, make sure to use 1 slide and 4 taps here for her skill order. For the third tip here, if you are using Ramla Dal, She does require 3 red stars ignition, as well as make sure to use Zagati alongside her. Kalchas is also a good recommendation to run alongside Ramlethal if you don't happen to have Zagati. Just make sure to have him ignited to full ignition. Of course, if you don't happen to have Ramlethal, then do not use Zagati or Kalchas at all, and only use Lady Bathory. For the soul kata recommendations here, everyone, we do have the attacker soul katas featuring Measure of Justice, which would be the best option, followed by this soul kata we do have Beach Trap and Victim, and the last option here would be Halloween Diva. As for the debuffer kata, we do have Troubleshooter Mona, which would be the best debuff soul kata for your debuffers. We also do have here Juno's Gift, which does have debuff duration percentage plus. As for the supporter tank kata front row soul katas, we do have Change of Air, which does happen to apply skill gauge percentage plus when receiving a hit. We also do have Showtime here, which is a very flexible debuff evasion percentage plus soul kata. As for the sample lineup here, everyone, we do have the front row consisting of Tragedy Versulica, Babel, Erebus, Kresnik, Sweet Citri, Samael, Failnaught, Anemone, Teresa, and Lewin. As for the back row here, we have Courtesan Bathory, Sweet Letta, Metis, Self-Depreciating Navi, Oracle Werewolf, Lady Bathory, Mercury with 4-star ignition, Lupin, Maid Citri, as well as Freya. As for the drive skill order, you will want to be running Samael into Kresnik drive, as well as ending off with Erebus drive. Now, if you don't happen to have your Kresnik ignited to 4 stars, you should also consider running Samael drive into Maid Citri drive and ending off with Erebus drive. As for the final tips of the guide here, everyone, we do have always drive Erebus before Fever Time, experiment with other drive skills as well as orders, examples Mercury, Oracle Werewolf, Maid Citri, etc. The team composition above is a sample for new players, low budget, as well as no collaboration units. That is why I didn't include Ramlethal in the team composition shown here on screen. Next here, we do have experiments with other leader skills, examples Ramlethal. Of course, Ram's leader skill is the best for this event. We also do have Erebus, Metis, etc. As for the final tip here, we do have the Soul Kata Tea Bloody Tea Time is another great option for your supporter units in the front row. So that'll pretty much do it for the World Boss Trial Season 32 Harmonia team guide here, everyone, for you all to follow. So I'll be sure to have this one linked in the description box below if you guys would like to check out this guide on your own times or save the image on your device as well. So make sure to let me know in the comment section below if this guide was helpful to you at all, and of course also be sure to include how you guys are doing throughout the World Boss Trial here as well. Now I'll be sure to have additional videos covering this event here, of course overviewing my team as well as an average damage test and of course summons, etc. But before you go, make sure to leave a like on this video, as well as be sure to subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't yet done so already, and of course consider checking out channel memberships down below if you guys are interested in supporting the channel at a small cost. And of course you'll receive a ton of emotes here to use in the comments as well as in future live streams. Now with that being said, a huge thank you to all of the channel members here that have continued to support the channel here. I do appreciate every single one of you, so a huge thank you to all of you that have joined so far. But with all of that being said, I'll catch you all in the next Destiny Child video. As always, thank you all so much for watching.